Welcome to Alchemical Science. I'm Jurien, an open source researcher, alchemist, and a student of the inventor and vortex fusion specialist Malcolm Bendel. We are nearing the end of the footage from Cosmic Summit. There's still a couple more videos of the footage taken there to come, and some loose ends to tie up. But today we have a half-hour clip of Bob Greenyer showing macrophotography analysis live of a sample from Henk Jurien's Vega Valley experiments, and he also goes over a large print of some SEM analysis that was done on Dr. Huang's DHX-2 reactor in the second half of the clip as well. So he talks about the fractal toroidal moment, symbolism in ancient architecture. He mentions the thunderstorm generator a number of times too. It's all really interesting stuff, and this is unreleased footage that isn't part of the Cosmic Summit video on demand. So if you're coming in new here and you haven't heard of Bob Greenyer, brief introduction. He's one of the world's foremost independent experts on ball lightning, or plasmoids, water bubble cavitation, and the fractal toroidal moment. He's studied and worked with a host of important names in the field, and he was part of the core team which established the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project, an independent group which serves the scientific community by providing independent verification, replication, and advice on these types of reactors and experiments, and they open source all of this on their channel. So Bob has released well over 1,000 videos on the channel detailing the project's open source experimentation and analysis. The Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project YouTube channel and Bob's Substack blog, both linked to in the description, are some of the greatest existing English resources for those wishing to get deep into the science of ball lightning or plasmoids and the related phenomena and technologies. So you will find literally hundreds of references to other relevant research and experimentation over there as well. So it's a really great starting point, Bob's work. Again, if you're new to Bob's work in this field, this video may mostly go over your head, but I published this in full anyway because I believe it is historical, groundbreaking science that we will wish to have documented in full in the future when everyone's finally attempting to catch up to the work that guys like Malcolm and Bob have been doing on force over the last decade. So for now, if this video does go over your head, I urge you to watch it through anyway. A lot of what's involved in getting your head around Bob's SEM analysis and his other work is just pattern recognition. Bob's looking for recurring structures which he's observed to be typical to ball lightning or plasmoid synthesis that he's observed, during his decade of research on these related phenomena and reactors. So along the way, you will hear him relate the form, geometry of these structures to other natural phenomena, such as the form of the human face or a leaf, or naturally synthesized crenellated iron-rich microspheres, and also he'll relate structures he finds in these fusion reactors to symbolism hidden in ancient and modern texts and architecture, things like this. So huge range of scientific fields and subjects. So Bob's character, he's foremost a scientist and a skeptic in the sense that he believes what he can verify with his own senses, what is replicable. However, he's also an alchemist and somewhat of a polymath, so he doesn't conduct his work within conventional boundaries, and this is why I find him to be a great teacher and a really great independent thinker, someone worth following. On this topic, I'll shortly be traveling to Bob's homeland of Czech to assist with his research for a few weeks. I'm really grateful to Bob for this opportunity. It's very complementary to my study under Malcolm Bendel, and a huge opportunity for me to learn directly from someone that I consider to be a very important teacher in this field. So I'll make sure to share some video updates during this trip and take the time to ask Bob plenty of questions. So I'll also be attending the Alchemy of Prague and Advanced Energy Systems Symposium put on by Roger Green of Breakthrough Energy. And Bob will also be attending this, and he'll be speaking there with Paul Harris and showing more of this type of thing that you'll be seeing in the video live at the event. So I highly recommend coming. It's in less than a month's time now, so you do need to get your ticket as soon as you can. We hope to see you there. Check out the full event details in the description. And that's all for the introduction. Let's watch through the unreleased footage from Bob's analysis of the sample from Henk Jurien's Vega Valley experiments and the SEM image from Dr. Huang's DHX-2 reactor from the Monday classroom at Cosmic Summit.
So I think it's going to be a bit of time before everyone's here. I'm going to let Malcolm, take over and do the main bit. But from my point of view, I have several things that I would like to be able to share with you today, and you guide me. So I can talk about microscopy, and I've got a 400 times microscope, and I also have a macro photography set up, and this will take a bit of time for me to set up, so I'll talk a bit and maybe they'll talk a bit and I can get some things. But if you intimate to me what you would like to see, then I can teach you how I do my macro photography, micro photography. And then I have some books to look at and a vast array of images, some that also I haven't been able to share. You'll be able to look at the Vega Valley sample, probably one of the most important samples I've ever looked at. You'll also be able to look at the sample which has the map of the pyramid on the back and an exact imprint of the sacred geometry on the top surface and the bottom surface that was created in a Henk and Vega experiment. So that's me. Have a think about the kind of... Oh, I've also got, I said earlier, we've got an alpha, beta, gamma detector, a gamma spectrometer somewhere, if I can find it in my bag. I actually have an infrared camera, a really, really nice one, if I can get that set up as well. But I've got plenty of time today. So I'm going to hand it over to Malcolm, and he can talk about what he wants to talk about today. Micron. Optically with full color, and because it has oversampling on the pixels, you get the exact color per pixel, right? So if I move this around, you can actually see the landscape.
Is it 0.5 micron?
You can see 0.85 of a micron. Yeah.
Wow, is there any chance we can get this on the big screen?
No, but I am recording it right now, and then it can be played afterwards.
Yeah, it's recorded so you can send it to us.
So essentially what you're seeing around here are yin-yang pairs, yin-yang pairs, yin-yang pairs, yin-yang pairs, and you get twisted. If I go over here, it's a rather nice bit over here that I rather like.
You've explored this whole geography, haven't you?
Yeah. But actually, this is the first time I'm recording in 8K. So you can see the pairs here. Now, over here, I'm going to show you this structures over here. You can see where the ball lightnings are formed in the central channel here. The central channel. This dark line here, and then they bled out, and they've left these classic channels that Ken Scholder saw, and as they've traveled across the surface.
What are those?
So I'm gonna, what I'm gonna do, kill that light's overdoing it really. I'm on 10, okay. And then I'm gonna change this one. No, that one. I should have a switch for that, shouldn't I?
Okay. It's like a ring light on it.
Take a look at this real quick.
Okay. So the images of iron-rich crenellated spheres.
These guys are trying to get you to look at.
Oh,
have a quick look at that.
Oh wow! Oh, that's beautiful. That is really beautiful.
Crinoid fossil, silicated fossil imprint, right? So they have that same
Holy
radial
crap!
shape
Yes.
in their vertebrae.
What a great
Yeah, so
camera.
in that Rodionov paper with Savatomova that I talked about on dark matter threads, it's called,
Okay.
they say that fossilization is because there are these persistent dark matter structures that exist in the body, and when the calcification or the mineralization of an organic structure happens, you literally have it working on the template of the actual dark matter that's left from the living organism.
Huh.
So it's organizing. So the fossil is caused by calcification and other silicate, all the mineralizations of the echo in the ether that's left by the dead living organism.
Right.
It's the exotic vacuum objects we're all made of.
It's leftover soul.
And that matter is connected around. So it's a whole...
Fossilization would not occur without that? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think it's one and the same.
Yeah.
So, so what you're seeing here is ball lightning tracks, and they come from the central channel, and it's literally, you can imagine this is like the Younger Dryas flood. And the big event that happened up here, and these things are coming across the landscape. And what I've showed you with the blown up ball lightning, with the silicon dioxide on the outside and the calcium oxide on the outside, that with the iron-rich crenellated sphere in the middle and the caduceus coming up and the subtores with the forming the smaller iron structures, they are all over here at the end of where these ball lightning came. They came down here, they de-energized, they'd lived their life, and they just blew up and deposited. So that's what I was showing you on the SEMs. In my presentation.
And you're saying if we got closer, like if we could get right up close and see that right at the
yeah,
bottom?
but like this is about as close as you can get.
So what are
optically.
those deposits? What are those deposits?
Those are, so what happened is, and this is why the sample's so amazing, zinc has a very low melting point and even a low boiling point. So in the center, you do get the zinc boiling, and it spreads out as a gas in between, and it covers the brass with this beautiful zinc oxide layer. Okay. And then as the ball lightning comes down, it eats through that zinc oxide layer and leaves these wonderful trails that eat into the brass substrate. And you can see the meandering formations they have, and sometimes they jump. So there will be a ball lightning structure here and a ball lightning structure here. And that center one there, we see where that little black spot is. If I went into that, I would be willing to place a reasonable bet to say there's an iron-rich crenellated sphere in the middle there. Okay. So when you understand the behavior of these things, it becomes, I mean, it's a little bit boring for me now. So now the thing is, yeah, honestly it is. So look, you can see an overall tongue shape there.
Look at diamond.
And in fact, I'll show you here. There's actually and I really mean this. This is the lower part of the ankh. So you've got one wing there, the center there, and the other wing there, and the lower part of the ankh. Okay? And whatever it was up there. So I'm going to focus on that little area. It's a little bit too far out to see it. Where are we going to go down? Yeah. So there we go. So you've got one side of the arm of the ankh, the center of the ankh, and the side over there, and then you've got the tongue of the ankh reaching down. And according to the Egyptians, the secret to all hidden technology is the bit under the loop, under the ankh, of the ankh. And that there is the core of the monopole, right? So like in this case, we're looking at something about like this kind of perspective here, like there.
So would that be the pole?
That is where the monopole comes. So yeah, it's pulling in matter with this tongue, okay, into that core there, or it's destroying matter there and throwing it out. Probably that one in that case. This would be the yang.
The emission jets of a pulsar or something.
Quite possibly, yes. Yeah. So I want to go and show you this structure here, because this is the end of a floodplain for fluidized electrons. Now, when you look at this under the SEM, all you see is copper oxide. All of this looks like copper oxide. Okay? But what can you see there as well?
Say again, where at?
Here, this area here.
Is it different polarizations?
Yes, it's different polarizations. And what you have there is hexagon structures in rings and then an overall cap, okay? And what it's done is it's changed the spin or some magnetic aspect of that so that when you hit it with normal light, it's spinning the light one way, making green, and it's spinning light the other way, making red. And that is the echo that's left in the material of the ball lightning organized, self-organized hexagonal array that has gone on that point. Now, that scale there, one substructure of that, and the pair with the red and the green is the same scale as you see on the wall here of the structure which we looked at earlier here with these yin-yang pairs. Okay, here. So these things on the wall side. So I can look at this all week. This it isn't really boring, but looking for iron-rich crenellated spheres is boring, but looking...
So how difficult was it to make this sample? Like, I missed that.
It's pure serendipity.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it replicatable?
I imagine so, but like you've got to have someone who has the courage of someone like Henk, Jurien.
You can make your own ball lightning at home on the kitchen table.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
You can.
So if it's happy coincidence,
we can make thunderstorm generators at home, right?
All the time.
That's why we're here.
If you replicated
someone
this,
else's own.
so he had a double-sided Cockcroft Walton made out of a bunch of capacitors he got second-hand and some big diodes. He put it in a cardboard box under a bench in his barn. He then had a fan to keep 4 microwave transformers cool, and he killed one transformer. That's why he had a limit of 750 volts. See you later, mate. Bye, bye.
Safe travels.
And so you had up to 750 volts for the pulses, and it's as much as a roughing pump could make the low pressure air. Ball lightning forms in nitrogen-rich air with oxygen in the air, doesn't it? So, you should be able to make ball lightning in a chamber, but of course, creating any kind of ionization gets easier when you have a lower pressure, right? So, and then the whole chamber is a negative electrode. So rather than the Sapphire had just one disc at the end, he couldn't afford some fancy copper and whatever, so he just got an old, and I said that the previous reactor he was using, that this was actually made in, was stainless steel, and I said you need to change it for iron. So a lot of the Vega experiments since then have been iron to prevent charged strange radiation from being able to go through the iron. So it gives you a good sense of protection. So, or at least a little bit more confidence you're not being bombarded by these things. The normal radiation detectors like this and this alpha beta gamma pancake device can't see. You know what I mean? So, so yeah, this for me is probably the most important sample I've ever been able to handle, because it shows the whole thing, and what you see in a spectrum of ball lightning recorded and published in a peer-reviewed journal early in the last decade. The ball lightning breakup products here are exactly and precisely that. And although calcium oxide and silicon oxide and iron oxide are the bulk of the material, all of the rest of the elements between are all of the elements in your body. I consider this ball lightning to be the flower of life, literally. And when you see that Temple of Osiris, Abaddon, or whatever it is, that place that I showed you with the so-called laser things on the wall, and then the 3D version under the Temple Fu Dog in the Central Palace, in the Forbidden Palace in Beijing, that's the spherical thing. It is the flower of life. It is the flower of life. This is the flower of life. This is what you use to transmute anything to anything. It is the God's toolbox. And all of the magic comes out.
Iron plate is the best protection from the strange radiation?
Good iron plate is... No, sorry. That kills ones that are non-neutral. Okay? And because his chamber is all negatively charged, that also will excite neutral ones into a charged state so that they also effectively stopped. And that is one way you can do it. If you've got a cavitation device, which you can kill yourself very quickly, by the way, without knowing it, you'll just get cancer later and like, oh, isn't it sad?
That's the way to go.
Yeah, so you need sheets of aluminium, and I use aluminium cellophane. So the Ark of the Covenant was layers of conductors and I think acacia or something. It was like, and that will, in my view, if it was stored charge clusters, that would help the emissions, because they would constantly pull energy in from the ether, which is a neutral that goes in, but when it gets overcharged, it will emit these 2 kiloelectron volt photons, and if the structures break, they spit out coherent matter waves, and if they're neutral or you don't want them to travel through, you want them to hit the incredible conductive gold layer, be converted into the charged state, and then dissipate like you saw the ball lightnings traveling along the surface. So I'll take you over here to the Matsumoto, to the Huang sample, because this completely solved.
Yeah, keep going, man. You're good. You died of crushing.
This is a yin. This is a
Keep moving, guys.
produced in a cavitation reactor. These are the scales typical of one of the quantizations observed by Ken Shoulders. Here, Ken Shoulders would split exotic vacuum objects, and they would go in one or two directions, but they seemed to be bound by something, okay? And then they would snap back together when they got through their obstruction, right? Now, what you're seeing here are the filaments of matter wave, but in the collapsed matter wave ordinary matter state. So when this was active, in my view, these were like little wormholes with matter in a coherent matter wave state, linking these two together, right? And they're able to travel through ordinary matter without any restriction, okay? But when the oval toroidal structure collapses, then this is stellar synthesis matter that you see in these filaments that are bound into and coming out of the substructures in between. Yeah. So now, as I said in my presentation, in I think it's the 2014 peer-reviewed paper, they said that the toroidal or fractal toroidal moment, they don't call it that, they call it supertoroidals in the West, hypertoroidals in the Soviet sphere. If you have a polarization one way, then you get the vortex structure like this with a magnetic structure like that. If you have the electrical polarization the other way, you get it like that. Now, it's a certain number of megavolts per meter that does the flip. And if you look at the scales here, I'm trying to remember it offhand, I think it's about 7.2 volts. Now, how much do you need to split water? 2 volts. A little bit over, but yeah, a little bit over. So this could be splitting water as it goes, producing atomic hydrogen, which it feeds on. And you see, it needs to be this scale and this level of substructure of vorticity to affect the process of accessing electrons and protons to continue doing its synthesis. And over here, if someone could grab Matsumoto's book on the table up there, if it's still there?
Yeah, I've got one on.
Have you? Okay, fantastic. Yeah.
So, I'm trying to understand this kind of in reference to that flower of life you mentioned over there.
Yeah.
Is that the filaments that you're seeing? Is that the representation of that six-petaled flower?
These filaments are coherent matter waves which were connecting these two structures that have now collapsed in my view. Right? And the collapsed wave has a spread spectrum of elements typical to stellar synthesis. So there's magnesium, calcium, predominantly carbon.
Right.
So if you look at the Kordylewski clouds, and if you look at the word of Vikram, or the guy that was presenting yesterday, he says most of interstellar dust is carbon. Why? Because of these things.
Right.
Most of what they produce is carbon. Right? And there's reasons why. It's 3 alpha particles, and the alpha particles, when they come out, they are diamagnetic, so they don't like to go back into this magnetic structure. Right? So once they're made and they're out there, they're a little bit hard to deal with. Right. This is the flower of life in all literal senses, in my view.
Right. So what I see here is that same X pattern with polar form, right? That we get in the six-petal flower.
No. This is just 2 central apples that have kindly broke up. These apples are in a much better condition, but inside this, there's 2 structures, and this is one overall structure, right? Okay. Inside here, there's another 2 that are orthogonal. And those have 2 which are orthogonal in them. That's a wheel within a wheel within a wheel. Literally, that is what we're talking about. The wheel within a wheel within a wheel, okay? And what we're going to see over here is one of those wheels, and if you look at the scale, that would be a pair of wheels. Now, the reason it's not apple shape and it's more like a vol-au-vent or a fat Oreo, right, is because this is the part of the sacred geometry, not on the outside flow pattern where you create the Vesica Pisces. It's the half radius in where they come and join in the middle. Okay, and because they come in the middle, they get flat sides. It still expands out on the overall structure. This has come out of there. It kind of comes out, it fans out as it starts, the whole thing, the confinement is breaking up. But inside here is a point of electronuclear collapse. So this is a sub-tor of one of these structures, and that is one tor, which is going around there, through that structure and there, and these are sub-tors. So there's a wheel, electrodynamically here. This is a sub-tor of that, and this is a sub-tor of one there. This is the wheel within the wheel within the wheel. Okay? And in this, so at one point, there is a beam that comes down here, which has got torsion, and I believe it affects the structure of the physical vacuum, but it literally pulls the chi out of matter, which comes in here, and then it flows into the structure to affect the other nuclear changes. In here, I believe what's happened in this case, and there are more samples to serious scientific organizations that will accept a material transfer document where they say, these are the tests that I will do, this is the time frame I will do them in, with a penalty if you do not do them within those time frames. It has to be published open. It has to be recorded sessions like I do, so there's no funny business going on, right? And it has to be put out in the open sphere. So that is the requirements from Greenyer and Huang, that there's quite a lot of material for anyone to verify these findings as they see fit. Now, in here, on page 91 of Matsumoto's book, having studied cold fusion and realizing it was ball lightning that did the process, his conclusion was, and which you can see on page 91, that some toroidal structure causes a situation in an electrodynamic sense where you get a point of electronuclear collapse. It goes into a wormhole, and out of that you get typical elements on the outside, hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen, and on the inside you get heavier elements like titanium and iron. Titanium is the fusion of CO2. We saw titanium on the inside of the outside of Malcolm Bendall's 500-hour reactor, okay, in a little piece. We also saw iron, but you don't know whether it's coming from the reactor. So what's happened here is the point of electronuclear collapse. The confinement has failed, and the matter has just gone off in the direction, the first direction it started going off in a wormhole, and then the matter, so you take the Earth, and you put it into a black hole, it's 12 millimeters across, right? So in there, it's a very small thing. It's not a singularity, but it is very small, right? And it's all coherent matter, and it comes out here, and then it goes and makes that beautiful crystal flower. Over here is probably the most important image of all of these, because I've got this in 8K by 8K, the actual resolution from the SEM. And what happened here is if you look at the scale here, 30 microns, 10 microns, 5 microns. 5 microns is one of the quantization sizes of the wheel within a wheel within a wheel that Ken Shoulders talks about. And what's happened is this structure has come in here and it started to consume matter. And what happens when it consumes too much, you can imagine it gets too energetic and it gets unstable. And it's left a Celtic braid. They are the two structures that are orbiting like that. And it's spitting out the material that it's captured, and it's depositing this. But one of the substructures within this substructure, which is already a wheel within a wheel within a wheel within a wheel of one of those structures, has lost its substructure. At this point, you can see it there, and it's spat out a helical beam as it's died. That is the most important image I think I've ever been able to capture. That is what you don't want going in your body. A neutral structure that is able to carry a large amount of matter in a state which it doesn't have any charge representation. So the only thing that's stopping you falling through this floor, or if you're sitting on a chair falling through the chair and the chair not falling through the floor, is because all of the electrons are the same. They're resonant. So they repel each other. But if you have a -1 charge, like a muon or a tauon, they're not quite the same, are they? Now, Ken Shoulders says you can have billions or trillions of electrons in the same single minus charge structure. Okay? But it's not resonant with ordinary electrons. It's on a different literal dimension. It's in our dimension, but it's a different dimension. It's a different resonance. It's like 2.45 gigahertz microwave Wi-Fi can go through walls, but 5 gigahertz is harder and the higher frequency because it starts to become resonant with the materials it's traveling through. But this is not resonant at all. But the weird thing is that coherent matter that's captured in a point that is so small it's never going to interact with any ordinary matter. It's a honey I shrunk my kids thing, right? That can travel through other things, and when the confinement of the structure collapses, the matter is reborn in the electronuclear regeneration, and that is teleportation of matter. Now the question is, can we create these structures, as I've had in my presentation, where you don't crush the matter, but you still create a bubble of space-time where light comes here and it appears over here. It's totally cloaking the thing inside, and it can't interact with ordinary matter, and it can travel through ordinary matter, and it is not affected because the thing that causes the action of gravity, giving weight to mass, is not able to impinge on the matter that's in this electrodynamic structure, in this flower of life mesh structure. So it can literally travel without inertia, and because of the structure over there that is able to change the dielectric constant physical vacuum epsilon zero, speed of light changes and time changes, and you can punch through and you're not restricted with the laws of relativity to going slower than the speed of light. So as Hal Puthoff says, there's one simple structure that can do all of these things. And then he has a patent talking about toroidal structures that combine in interesting ways to create a boundary in which there is no electric or magnetic force outside, but scalar and vector potentials. And that, my friends, is it. It's done, and it just needs the right money and the right place and the right people to deliver. And the question is, do you want to be the generation that makes that happen? It is the new dawn of an old age.
Does this correspond in scale to like the death of a star and the processes that we would see?
From my opinion, the way all matter is both in a cycle between alpha and omega repeatedly is because the divine creator understands and works with whirlwinds.
Right.
Like that quote.
The Templar Magic Square, adopted by the Christian Church all over Europe, from Syria all the way to the Celtic Islands, and then brought to America and spread all the way down. It was a charm to help people in health, to defend against lightning, all kinds of things.
Hidden in plain sight.
Hidden. We have literally had the fleur-de-lis with a torus around it, with matter going in, coming out.
Yeah.
The Maltese cross, which is the swastika and the matter from 4 substructures, which all have also their fractal substructures. You have the yin-yang, which is obviously part of the structure. You have the Om symbol, which is obviously part of the structure. You have the paisley. The paisley is what happens on one side. The first symbol of the first monotheistic church, religion, right? Every single of power in heraldry and in religion, the Vajra is the center between here, that's the little bit you get in the middle of the Vajra, and the 2 fingers coming out are there in the eye. You can see that in the Masonic Lodge in Brighton on the front door area. They literally draw the Vajra, and all of the proportions are exactly the sacred geometry I showed you. Exactly the same for the 1733 Masonic Lodge Grand Temple, the inner sanctum just down the road in New Jerusalem in Washington, D.C., right? It's exactly and it's precisely represented. It's been hidden in plain sight all of our lives and for most of recorded civilization since the last cataclysm, when before, I believe, it was used by a society, a global society that completely understood how to work with nature, and that this is the way to work with nature. And by the way, everything you're filming here is not compatible with this technology because it interferes with the PN junction.
The what junction?
PN junction, a transistor. We have 2 mutually exclusive technologies. One allows you to melt rock, levitate things, travel faster than light, travel through space-time, astral surf, everything you can possibly imagine, manifest, demanifest, create, destroy, total God's toolbox. And then you have this illusion, built on illusion.
Run by AI.
Oh, that's a freaking great circle jerk, where they get everyone to input their own information, and they tell you what everyone else worked out, and then they charge you for it.
This is teaching the rocks math, and this is the learning the math of the rocks.
Yeah. You cannot improve upon this. You cannot have an opinion to improve upon it, and no pattern. Listen, this can bore through rock instantaneously and effortlessly. And in the case of Kenneth Bradford shoulders, it left a nice vitrified layer, and the beeswax wasn't melted on top, right? So this was non-thermal fluidization of, in that case, aluminium oxide, which melts at 2070 degrees centigrade or thereabouts, right? It does the same with silicon dioxide. So this is boring through and making tunnels. Let's say we want to go to Mars. Don't build anything on the surface. You might have to take it there. Let's make loads of fully vitrified tunnels underground and make a city under Earth. We'll make a tunnel that way, tunnels there, just computer control it from above using this technology. One. The second one is, this is vertical takeoff and landing. And I told you, and I showed you the paper from June the 15th, 2023, where they realized using functional magnetic resonance imaging that during cognitive tasks for a conscious person, right, because oxygenated blood is diamagnetic and deoxygenated blood is paramagnetic, they can observe when they got these people to do cognitive tasks, magnetic vortices and magnetic anti-vortices. Of course, they don't say that that is the minimum required to create a toroidal moment, but it is. And that means you can use this technology to both manipulate humans, read their minds, program them for afar, and in my view, according to Tom Bearden, They call it psychotronic weapons, and the DNA is your cryptographic key. So you just need 2 people in your family stupid enough to give someone a swab. And then they doesn't matter where you are in the universe, how many miles of rock you're under, they can change and make your thoughts a certain way. And it's sick beyond belief. However, on the bright side, we can connect through the toroidal moment to manifest and control plasmoids.
As a human being without technology, do you think that's a possibility?
You do it when you join hands in a church and you pray, and your intention becomes a thing that goes out to the universe and tries to fix things. Fucking hell, prayer's real.
The Global Consciousness Project has something to do with that, doesn't it?
So I look at things like the morphogenic field, that people that have enough of their own cryptographic key, because we're not that much different. Like, my wife, she's Vietnamese, but really genetically we're quite close, you know. And so you only need enough people in enough of the world to understand a subject, and they're constantly uploading to the Akashic record. And what happens, the signal to noise ratio on a particular concept gets higher and higher and higher until it's so high with your cryptographic field, which has a bell curve with which you can pick up, that the people are filling in on the bell curve and it's getting closer to your cryptographic access, right? Basically it's down to the microtubules have a delocalized electron above and a delocalized electron below, and those are a yin and a yang electron, but they are defined in my view by your DNA, okay? So this is why you can learn from your predecessors easier. You do the thing your father does, not because they're teaching you necessarily, because you already know it, because it's in your genes. You have access to their cryptographic key, right? And so once enough people have uploaded the information, everyone gets it for free, which is why it's so important to share the information and across as many cultures as possible, and then it will just dump into people's brains.
Is that what we sort of see, like cognitive dissonance, would you say, in society, because there's so many fragments of information and no one knows what to believe?
No, you have television programming, right? And they are programming your brain, and what happens is that information gets uploaded as accepted truth into the Akashic record, and that forces everyone else to agree. That's why you have to get an idea out early and to as many people as possible, and then the people that are able to filter out the noise that comes into their brain, it's the noise, and they can discern truth from fiction. So you always question anything or anyone's or anything you see, and only believe what you know to be true and is replicatable. This isn't a fantasy. And if you get one of these samples, you will see exactly the same thing. Not slightly the same thing, you will see exactly the same thing. That's what I like about the Ultra experiment. It's a child-level experiment, and it produces exactly the same thing, and it shows you the principles the universe works on, in my view. And I will just add a caveat, I might be completely wrong. Do not believe anything I say. Do your own homework.
When I get home, I'll do this.
Know it for yourself.
All right, so I think Malcolm has arranged to do something.
Yeah, we've got a presentation that's going to be given by...
It's all right, it won't take long. But after this, you've had this, and then you're going to have little cartoons on crayons.
Tough act to follow.
The red crayon.
Now you're speaking my level.
Was my opening act.
Bathroom break, 4:10.
Okay, bathroom break is good.
Yeah.
I'm electrified, Bob.
Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more on these topics. I'll see you next time.